Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, December the 18th, 2014. Jewish-American contractor Alan Gross is home in what many are calling a Hanukkah miracle.
I have to say Chag Sameach and happy holiday season to all of you. Today is the first day of Hanukkah, and I guess so far it's the best Hanukkah that I'll be celebrating for a long time.
Gross thanked U.S. President Barack Obama, his wife Judy, and many others, including the Jewish community, in particular the Jewish Community Relations Council of Washington, D.C., for helping work towards his release. Gross was arrested in 2009 for providing internet access to the Jewish community in Cuba and sentenced to 15 years in prison. President Obama yesterday announced Gross's release and the separate release of a U.S. government agent in a prisoner swap and the reestablishment of diplomatic ties with Cuba. The president spoke about Gross again at a Hanukkah reception at the White House last night.
I want to begin with today's wonderful news. I'm told that in the Jewish tradition, one of the great mitzvahs is Pidyon Shivuim. But it describes the redemption, the freeing of captives. And that's what we're celebrating today, because after being unjustly held in Cuba for more than 5 years, American Alan Gross is free.
At the reception, the president also introduced two students from the Max Rain Hand-in-Hand School in Jerusalem that was targeted by arson 2 weeks ago, who joined the president at the reception.
In the weeks that followed, they and their classmates could have succumbed to anger or cynicism, but instead they built this menorah, one of 4 that we brought here from Israel this year. Each of his branches are dedicated to one of the values their school is founded on, values like community and dignity and equality and peace.
Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas met today with his leadership, updating them of the details of the Palestinian drafted resolution that was submitted yesterday to the United Nations Security Council. The draft reportedly calls for Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank by the end of 2017 and for reaching a peace agreement between the Palestinians and Israel within a year. The proposal calls for the establishment of a Palestinian state based on 1967 borders with, quote, mutually agreed limited equivalent land swaps. It states that Jerusalem should be a shared capital and calls for the halt of all settlement construction. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commented on the resolution at a Hanukkah ceremony in Jerusalem today, where he said of Abbas, Abu Mazen thinks he can threaten us with unilateral steps. He does not understand that they will result in a Hamas takeover in Judea and Samaria, just as previously occurred in Gaza. Netanyahu said, "We will not allow this to happen." The high contracting parties to the 4th Geneva Convention held in Switzerland yesterday called for Israel to be investigated for alleged violations of human rights during the conflict with Hamas in Gaza this past summer. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu slammed the calls for a probe, saying Israel is forced to defend itself against terrorists who committed, quote, double war crimes, firing indiscriminately on Israeli civilians while using their own people as human shields. National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Abe Foxman, noted that Israel is the only state targeted for criticism at such conferences. He said those who truly care about international humanitarian law should be deeply worried that the 4th Geneva Convention will end up with the same discredited reputation as the UN Human Rights Council, known more for its Israel bashing than the lofty principles it is supposed to uphold. Newly elected U.S. Representative Lee Zeldin has been appointed to the U.S. House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee. The senator, soon to be representative from New York, was among 25 Republican members named to the committee last week. Zeldin replaces Eric Cantor as the only Jewish Republican in Congress. He was also named this week as co-chairman of the House Republican Israel Caucus. A Jewish couple in New York chose to honor the memory of Druze police officer Zidane Saif by giving their newly born son his name. Saif was killed last month by Palestinian terrorists while trying to protect the lives of Jewish worshippers during the Har Nof synagogue terror attack. At their son's circumcision this week, Alexander and Jennifer Chester named their baby Yakov Zidane, explaining that Zidane, while Druze and not Jewish, did not hesitate to run and save the lives of the worshippers in the synagogue. They said Zidane Saif was a Jewish hero, and he deserves to have his name called among the Jewish people for all time. Alexander Chester said he prayed his son would strive for the peace and safety of all people, regardless of their religion or ethnicity. Saif's widow said she was moved by the Jewish couple's gesture and that it would remind people of her husband and his defense of the State of Israel. And turning now to our programming for tonight, Thursday, December the 18th, the third night of Hanukkah. Coming up at 6:30, remarks from the 2014 General Assembly of the Jewish Federations of North America from CBS National News correspondent Dan Raviv and chairman of the JFNA Board of Trustees, Michael Siegel. That's tonight on JBS and jbstv.org. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, December the 18th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader. Chag Sameach.